So this video is a follow-up on the Soto Sigh video. So in that one, I looked at various instances in her interviews where you got the Soto Sigh and looked at what it could possibly mean in each instance. In this video, I want to look at those times when Jenn is either almost inaudible or pretty much whispers her response, and I want to figure out what's going on in each of those instances. Now, that said, I have stopped at one point because I had something like an hour's worth of clips that I could have worked through, and that was before even finishing the interview from the 1st of March when they just completely nailed her ass. So I've limited the clips that I've used, but I think we can get a fair idea from what I do actually have here. Thanks for being patient with me. I know it's taken a while to get this video out between Christmas and all those sort of things. It's always that busy couple of days when it's hard to really get much done, hence the reason why I put out the uninterrupted interviews instead of actually putting out a full-on video. Admittedly, this video has been about 3 days worth of work, so that's also led to delays. So without further ado, let's just jump into it and have a look at these instances where Jenn is speaking very, very quietly in her interviews.
So, no arguments at home recently or anything?
No, nothing like that.
Okay, so straight up, I actually had trouble hearing the last part of what she said there. He asked her if there had been any arguments at home, and she says no, very quietly, and then the rest of it is so quiet that even with my headphones in, I couldn't quite pick up what was said. So, why the decreasing volume and the mumbling? I suspect that there were plenty of recent arguments at home prior to Maddie going missing, should we say. And I think that Jenn is either trying to hide that fact because she wants to seem like a good mum, which seems to be the theme with her, or one thing that I have speculated about the Sunday night is Maddie was pretty annoyed with Jenn for not going to her birthday. Is it possible that they had an argument on the Sunday, either before Jenn went to work or when Jenn came home, and that's why Jenn is so vague about Sunday night, because she actually didn't really speak to Maddie at all? Either way, to me, the diminishing volume here suggests the opposite of what Jenn is trying to say here. I believe that there were plenty of arguments, and that there were arguments right up until the date that they reported Maddie missing. Whether there is any connections with that, in terms of, like so many have said, it seems like she didn't see Maddie Sunday night. Could this be one of the reasons? Well, only Jenn could tell us that. Now, just a quick apology. I realise maybe it sounds worse to me, but I know my voice is a bit scratchy and a bit dry today. We've got bushfires over the other side of Victoria. We've got all the smoke coming this way, which for someone like myself who struggles with asthma has meant that major asthma attack through the night, all the coughing and stuff, which has stripped my throat, and now you're seeing the after effect. So I apologise profusely for my horrid voice at the moment. Not much I can do about it, sorry.
Has she ever, in the totality of, I guess, everything, as long as she's been, ever gone off to spend time by herself, or gone to hang out at a park by herself, or something to kind of clear her own head?
So there's a lake right behind this building.
Mm-hmm.
She'll sometimes sit at the dock by the lake, but I check on her often.
Okay.
So, as you can tell from that one, Jenn not only does her little whispers, but you get this diminished volume as she says something, where she gets to the end of saying it and it is almost a whisper. Now, to me, that is her basically saying it and realizing as she's saying it that either it's a lie or she probably shouldn't have said it. And this is the pattern with Jenn. When you get the diminished volume, you know that either she's answering because she knows she has to answer but she doesn't want to give that answer, or it's a lie. In this instance, they've asked her about places that Maddie goes, and she talks about the spot where she goes and sits by the lake. And she says that she checks on her often, but as she's saying she checks on her often, the volume gradually diminishes. So to me, what she's telling us here is that Maddie does have this spot where she goes to chill out by the lake, and Jenn really doesn't give a rat's ass, and she didn't actually bother checking on her when she went to that spot. That's my interpretation of that. Let me know if you take it a different way, but I think what we're seeing here from Jenn is so many instances when she's trying to sound like the responsible parent, because she knows that she has screwed up so badly with this child that now she wants to try and hide that fact by coming up with all these little stories that make her look like the mother of the year, which she's definitely not.
I'm just trying to figure out, I mean, if she, I don't know if something at school upset her, something here upset her. Not that it would be anyone's fault, but if there's somewhere that she may go for, like, you know, peace of mind.
Yeah, it would be the lake right behind the house.
I think back to the interview with Yolanda, and she relates to a time about 12 months earlier when Maddie had had an argument with Jenn, and she'd taken off and she was wandering around the town, and Yolanda had told her, "Don't be silly, go back home." Again, Jen's talking about this spot by the lake, and again she's speaking in this really, really quiet voice. And I'm wondering if this is the spot that Maddie goes to when Jenn and Maddie get into it. Because from what we hear, there were quite a lot of arguments between Jenn and Maddie. And he's asking her were there spots that she would go to when she was upset. And she says it so very quietly that to me, there's definitely something in here. She doesn't want this conversation to continue down this track. She doesn't want him to ask her anymore about this spot by the lake. So I think that is probably almost certainly where Maddie goes to Maddie went to when her and Jenn were having arguments. And chances are Jenn probably just ignored her, let her go, and just got into her own little self-centered Jenn world and didn't bother checking in on her when she was there. Maybe wrong. I'm certainly no expert on these things, but definitely she really doesn't want to discuss this particular topic.
Did you guys take the phone anywhere other than when Detective Hunt took the phone?
I think it's been home all day. I don't think I left the house with him.
Okay. Did Stefan have access to the phone?
I'm sorry, I took my medicine, so I feel a little spacey. I think I've had it with me. I think it's been with me.
Okay, she's pulled out all the stops there. So, asked about Maddie's phone. Note her answers are all, I think. No affirmative answers. She's being evasive. But even before she answers, there's a really, really long pause and you get the Soto Sigh. And then, I think it's been with me all day. And then when asked if Stephen has had access, she still, we got the pause, still responds with, I think it was with me. Here, not only is she pretty much whispering her answers, she's talking very quietly, but she's also not giving solid affirmative answers. She's being quite evasive. She has not said outright that Stefan did not have access to Maddie's phone. I suspect that what she's trying to avoid here is the simple truth that Stefan has had Maddie's phone at some time during the day. My speculation is that he may have deleted text messages from her phone, which hopefully, if he did so, they have retrieved them.
What else? She had an asthma inhaler. She had an asthma inhaler.
Yeah, I've lost track of how many times I've talked about this asthma inhaler. But for the benefit of anyone who's new to my channel and has not caught those other videos, to me it is really significant that she says she had an asthma inhaler, note past tense, and then she repeats it so quietly that you can barely hear her, and then you can hear a definite shift in emotion when she says it for the third time. There is something so significant about Maddie's asthma inhaler. To me, I believe that Jenn was aware of a particular point in time when her daughter was not breathing the night before, or the night before she was reported missing. To me, this is hugely significant, and this suggests to me outright that Jenn did know something about what happened to her daughter.
So he takes the dog out, took a potty or whatever it may be, and he comes back inside. Do you see him when he comes back inside?
I don't remember.
Okay, so the translation to that, of course, is no, he didn't come back inside because he never went outside with the dog in the first place. Note, when asked if she remembers him coming back in with the dog, there is a long pause. Anytime Jenn doesn't want to give an answer, because she knows that it's not a good answer to give, you get the long pause. When you get the lowered voice as well, that's when you need to pay attention. So she's saying, I don't remember him coming back inside. No, she knows full well that he did not take the dog out that morning. That is my speculation. I believe there was something else going on when he came into her room to supposedly collect the dog. And she knows that, hence the reason the long pause and the quiet voice. Were she to simply think, oh, I must have fallen back asleep, she would say that without any issues. But she knows that's not what happened. So instead, you get the silence and the quiet voice.
Did Stefan know about your doctor appointment on Monday? Did you tell him what your plans were on Sunday?
I'm not sure when I told him. I must have told him Sunday night, yeah, or Sunday, because there's no way I could have told him Monday morning if he didn't have his phone on him, and I didn't really talk to him that morning.
So there's a few things going on here, and I actually hadn't picked up on part of this before. So she's asked, did you discuss your appointment with him Sunday night, or when did you discuss it with him? And she's very, very quiet when she says, I'm not sure when I told him when my appointment was. Again, Jen's always so vague when she doesn't want to give answers, and so quiet. So you've got the quiet voice and a really vague, I'm not sure. And then she goes on to say, well, there's no way that I could have told him Monday morning if he didn't have his phone on him. And I didn't really talk to him that morning. But note how the volume gradually diminishes to the point where when she's saying, and I didn't really talk to him that morning, by the time she finishes saying talk to him that morning, the volume has gone right down. What does that say to me? That says to me that, in fact, when Stefan has previously said that he'd been in and out of Jen's room several times that morning and had conversations with her, that did occur. And Jen's trying to avoid saying that because she doesn't want to admit to being awake that morning when Stefan was carrying her daughter out of the apartment and putting her daughter in his car. It's far more convenient as an alibi to have slept through it all. But the way that her sentence diminishes in volume there says to me that there was definitely some conversation that occurred between Jenn and Stefan on that Monday morning.
There were times that they begged for sleepovers, like, please, we just want to stay up late watching movies. And I would be too tired to stay up late, so I would say, fine, go ahead and do it. But just this once, like...
When did you start becoming comfortable with it?
I don't know if I was ever comfortable with it.
So again, you have the long silence before you get the seriously reduced volume. I don't know if I was ever comfortable with it. Does she sound even remotely assertive here? Nuh-uh, not at all. Once again, we have her outright lying, I believe. Note she doesn't know if she was ever comfortable with it. Well, of course she would know. The only reason she's saying it that way is because she doesn't want to admit that she really couldn't care less if Maddie was upstairs with Stefan. It was so commonplace that she didn't think twice about it. That's what the truth of this situation is here. That's why you get the long pause. That's why she's saying she didn't think, or she doesn't think, or she doesn't know. Yes, she really didn't care. It was convenient for her because it meant she could have her nice big king-size bed all to herself and not have to worry about Stefan or Maddie being in the bed taking up space. It all comes down to Jenn. She never once thought about whether or not it was wrong to send her daughter upstairs with Stefan.
But you told them to go Sunday night to go sleep together.
I did. That was a selfish move on my part because I wanted a good night's sleep. I didn't want her kicking me or rolling into me or waking me up, or to hear her alarm so that it woke me up. I wanted to keep sleeping until I needed to sleep, because I just had not, with my training schedule, I have not had a good night's sleep. My medication was out of whack. I was feeling funny and not like myself.
Now, what I found really interesting there was that, first of all, in response to his question over, but you were okay with it Sunday night, she says, when she's talking about Maddie and about her, that was a selfish move on my part because I didn't want her kicking me or rolling onto me, waking me up. All that she says very, very quietly, but then as soon as she starts talking about Jenn, the volume starts to go up again. So suddenly it's all about her needing the sleep, needing to make sure she took her meds, all the things that were important things for looking after Jenn, and she doesn't need to whisper anymore. She doesn't see anything wrong with basically showing how much of a narcissist she is. Probably because she just doesn't realise how much of a narcissist she is. But in terms of the admitting that she did it for her own selfish reasons, you have the super quiet voice because she knows that that was wrong.
Did you know he's never said anything to you or anything about it?
If anything, I've always told him that my biggest fear is that this would turn into a Woody Allen situation where...
Now, obviously, with a lot of it redacted, we have to kind of read between the lines there. But he's essentially asking Jenn if she knew about what was going on with Stefan, with Maddie. And when she says no, you've got to pretty much crank up the volume to hear it. It's so, so, so quiet. And then she deflects, or tries to deflect, with that dumbass Woody Allen comment. I was always afraid that it was going to turn into a Woody Allen situation. She's essentially admitting that she knew what was going on. She doesn't want to say no audibly because that would be a lie. And her brain subconsciously is controlling the volume to try and stop that lie from coming out. But then she shows us that it's a lie by talking about this Woody Allen situation. To me, that is one statement from Jenn that proves that she knew what was going on beforehand. She might say no, but it's not a loud, assertive no. It's a whispered no. One that is so quiet that if you're not listening, you're not going to hear it. She knew. I think this is so clear to me. Yes, I could be wrong, but it just seems so clear. When she says no to being asked about what Stefan was doing, it is barely inaudible, and then straight up from that, her mind goes to talking about Woody Allen. How much more clearly could she state that she knew without actually saying it outright?
He tells you that he took Maddie to school and drops her off somewhere near the school so she could walk because she doesn't want to be seen inside of his car.
Yeah.
Okay, do you believe him?
I don't think so.
What?
So, I wasn't sure about including these ones where she is apparently emotional I say apparently because I'm not convinced. But I think it's still worth looking at them. If we look at it in the context of, to me, what I'm seeing with Jenn's supposed emotion is that the emotion comes up when she is basically being accused of something. The emotion's not about Maddie. The emotion is about Jenn. About being caught out. So, if we look at it in that context, as well as in the context that a lot of it sounds quite fake, then it's probably still worthwhile to listen to the instances where she's got this emotional display going on and getting quietly spoken at the same time. So he asks her if she believes Stefan's story. Now, this is just after she's found out what he was doing to her daughter. So you would expect her to fire up and be, no way do I believe his story now. He's a lying bastard. I'll just say it that way so YouTube doesn't go at me. You would expect her to fire up. But instead, she's like, no, super quietly, I don't think so. She doesn't think so. She's being vague again here. She's not giving a definitive answer. I would expect from a parent for them to say, no way. There's too many things here, and now that you've shown me this, I don't believe them. But instead you get this itty-bitty Jenn voice again. I don't think so. She's not even sure. To me, that says, well, maybe she believes his story because they worked on it together. But perhaps she knows that that's not what happened. There's a difference.
Because of the evidence, because of photos, because of what you're telling me. Because he's clearly a liar. I want to hope my daughter's alive and out there, that she was taken. I don't know anymore.
Where's the rage? Where's her wanting to tear his arms off? No, you have this pissy little voice. Sounds like a whiny voice. And I'm sorry, but if you were genuinely shocked by the information that was given to Jenn, I don't think you'd be capable of stringing sentences together. I think what we have here is I won't say masterful, but she probably sees it as a masterful performance. She thinks she's got one over them. But I don't buy it. It just does not sound genuine. Where's the sniffing? Where's the pausing to get air? Because when you're that emotional, you hit a point where you're struggling to breathe. There's none of that. She's still speaking quite fluently. It's just that the pitch has gone up. She's still speaking quietly because it's all a load of BS. I wish we could have seen that one as a body-worn camera footage, because I'm willing to bet that there were no real tears happening right then and there. She's basically saying what she thinks they want her to say. But she's not sure if that's quite right, so hence the saying it really quietly. but the emotion just does not line up here.
The only person she was with was Stefan.
Why would he go to Northport?
I don't know. I don't know what's in Northport other than his parents.
Okay, so that is definite BS right there. He's basically telling her the only person that Maddie was with was Stefan. She was not abducted. She was in Stefan's car, deceased. And Jenn should be, at this point in time, having a reaction. What does she do? She deflects. She starts talking about Northport in her little voice. I think in this instance, the diminished volume here is her trying to sound like she's emotional. But to me, it just doesn't come out that way. This is not the right response, in my opinion, for her to turn around and say, want to know why he went down to Northport. She knows full well that he did not take Maddie down to Northport. And yet, this is her response when they've told her that Stefan is the only person Maddie was with. So perhaps the diminished volume is because she knows that what she's spinning here is a load of BS. Or perhaps it's just the diminished volume because she's still trying to give the impression of the sad, crying mum, which she is definitely not.
Did you know he was going to Northport?
I thought when I woke up and he wasn't in the hotel, I thought he had gone to the Target Plaza right next door to the hotel we were staying at, because he likes to go shopping when he's stressed. But that's not what happened according to you guys. He actually went all the way to Northport and came back.
So first of all, when they ask her, did you know he was going to Northport? She answers no so very quietly. Yet again. To me, definitely, I believe that she knew that he was headed to Northport. I think, and I've mentioned this in other videos, the way she says things, comments, etc., to me point to the fact that she probably did know that he went to Northport. So the fact that you have her saying no almost inaudible, to me suggests that that's an outright lie, and that she actually did know. Now, the other thing to note here is that she's trying so hard to continue to sound emotional, but she's struggling to keep it up. You can hear that she's losing that fake emotional tone, but she keeps trying to get it back. It's not quite as squeaky, but she's still doing her best to try and keep it there. So that to me says that it definitely was a complete put on. She hasn't completely switched off the fake emotion yet, but she's struggling to maintain this appearance of being upset. And you can hear that because of the change of tone in her voice, the fact that now when she's just talking about normal things, the voice level is going back up to normal, and she's still quite fluent with the way she's talking. There's no delays, which would suggest her trying to control emotions before she continues speaking.
Does that seem normal to you? To bring a garage remote inside the house?
No.
Again, trying to avoid the answer. does it seem normal to you for him to bring the garage clicker inside the house? She says no, so quietly, because she knows it's not normal. It's not done. And she doesn't want to have to answer and say, no, it's not normal to do that. Because that's basically dumping Stefan into it. And even still, despite knowing what he's done to her daughter, she still doesn't want to land him in trouble. She's still putting herself and him ahead of Maddie. Now, I just want to bring something up here. Something that I find really curious. He supposedly moved out in December. Why does he still have a garage clicker? Is it just a spare that she gave to him when he came back up? Or is it something that she's just allowed him to keep throughout? Which calls into question, how broken up were they? Because if they were really broken up, surely he should have returned the garage clicker. And if he was just visiting, he should have just got signed in at the gate rather than have his own clicker. Maybe I'm just being too picky here, but it's just a really odd thing. I'd be really curious to know if on the Sunday when he arrived, if he had the clicker then.
But he said that morning he left the house. He said that morning he left the house and then returned again because he forgot the garage clicker, so he came back to get the clicker. I don't know how true that is or not. But.
So then she repeats his story of coming back to get the clicker, and then almost under her breath she says, I don't know how true that is. And I think she says, or not. So here, even in saying it, she realises it sounds ridiculous. And she knows she has to give a response to that. And she knows the expected response is for her to say that she doesn't believe it. But since it's all part of a narrative, this is my opinion of course, since it's all part of a narrative, she says it almost under her breath. I don't know whether to believe him. Because she knows the truth of the situation. He had the clicker when he returns. And I believe she knows that, but she doesn't want to admit that. So instead, she just has to say, I don't know. Once again, very non-committal. She doesn't know if she believes him.
So the next picture is going to be Maddie in the front seat of Stefan's car. You see, right here? Mm-hmm. That's taken at 9 o'clock near SeaWorld.
9 o'clock in the morning?
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping you can tell me that.
So he shows her the image of the car, and presumably Maddie as well, at 9 o'clock near SeaWorld, and she says under her breath, what the F? Where did he go? I actually don't think that she meant to say that out loud. And I don't know if they had some prearranged plan between them, but I gather that this doesn't fit in with any kind of plan. You would expect, if she was surprised, for her to have been far more audible than that. the fact that she said that so quietly, to me, suggests that she possibly knew that he was out with Maddie that morning and that he didn't stick to the script. Just an observation, and that's possibly more on gut feeling than anything else. But her saying that so very quietly makes me think that, and the way she said it, that wasn't said for the benefit of the detectives. That was not meant to have come out at all, in my opinion. So, to me, that makes me question, why is she questioning that and not wanting the detectives to hear her questioning that? And to me, the only suggestion that I can come up with is that he has basically not stuck to the arranged plan. Maybe I'm wrong. Could be interpreted a different way, and I'd really love to hear how you guys interpret it. What do you think was going on here when she said that?
Went to SeaWorld?
He's near SeaWorld. That's International Drive. Does he know anybody up there?
I don't think so.
Is there a
He
special place
doesn't
he
have-
likes to go?
He doesn't have many friends like that. Like, not locally. Does he have anywhere he would like to go?
Is there a special place he likes to go?
Nothing I can think of.
So again, she says really quietly he went to SeaWorld, almost inaudibly. I think she was thinking out loud there. Somehow this is either off script or not the plan that was arranged. Something about it just isn't right for her. And then they ask her about friends, and the volume comes up a little bit, but I suspect she's still dwelling on him having gone to SeaWorld, because we know that he hasn't got any friends in the area. And I think she's just giving answers and still processing the why did he go to SeaWorld. I think that is possibly more a case of what was this dumbass doing driving all around like this where he was so visible. But then they ask her if there's places that he likes to go, and the volume gets right back down again, and apparently she doesn't know again, because Jenn doesn't know anything when they're asking her any of these kinds of questions, supposedly. Now, we do know that there are places that he likes to go, because she spoke about him getting that one-wheel electric thingy and them going places on that, etc. So I think she's just outright lying here. But certainly the fact that we've got this super quiet voice again, she's trying to avoid these answers for some reason.
Here's another picture from the dumpster in Venetian Bay of Stefan throwing away trash.
What day?
That's going to be Monday morning, probably around 7:45.
Has that already been taken? Have you guys been able to look at what was dumped? What was thrown out?
What do you think was in there?
Now, when they show her these images of him throwing things in the dumpster, her first concern is, has the dumpster been collected? Were you able to see what was in there? Not what the F was he doing. And she's saying this all so very quietly. This to me suggests this is not a conversation that she wants to have. I suspect she knows the answer to what was put in that dumpster. I may be wrong, but she's not responding the right way here. My first response, if my child was missing and someone says, look, your ex-boyfriend is throwing things out in the dumpster, we have these images, my response would be quite loud, and it would have a few expletives in it around the question of what was he doing, what was he throwing out, not wanting to double check and see if they'd actually been able to get hold of the dumpster before it was collected. Once again, it's more about wanting to avoid discussing the topic. And they ask her, what do you think he was throwing out? So let's hear how she responds.
Clothes? I don't know.
What makes you say clothes?
I can't tell what he's holding. I don't know if it's a plastic bag full of stuff.
So her response to what do you think he was throwing out was clothes and then I don't know. Both to the point where they were almost inaudible. She doesn't want to have this conversation. She doesn't want to discuss what was thrown in the dumpster. Now, if you were a parent and your child is missing and you're being shown these images, wouldn't you want to have this conversation? Wouldn't you want to know what the F was going on? Wouldn't you be yelling by this stage? Not Jen. No, she's almost inaudible. She doesn't want to give the answers because I suspect she knew exactly what got thrown out in that dumpster.
And she didn't tell you about this last cycle.
No.
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 You find that odd?
Yes. Now that you're bringing it up, yes.
So he asks her, she didn't tell you about this last cycle. And once again, we have an almost whisper of no. And he asks her no to confirm it. She's had time to process, and yet the volume does not increase. We still get a very quiet no. Jen knows the implications of what's being discussed here, and she doesn't want to go down this road. And then he asks her, do you find that odd? And again, almost inaudible, yes. Now that you bring it up, yes. So she's said yes twice here. She's doubling down. She definitely finds it odd. Later on, she claims, oh, well, you know, Maddie's cycle was a little bit strange, just like mine. But here, the fact that she's said that she finds it odd and she doubles down and repeats saying yes, this here, I think, gives us a really big indication of what she's thinking here. Yes, the volume is really low because she doesn't want to admit to it. But she does find it odd that Maddie did not have her cycle or did not mention her cycle. She doubles down. She says yes twice. This is not just an irregular pattern, as she later claims. This is something that is concerning to Jenn.
Do you find it odd that it would be a month late?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Jenn's responses here are a major tell. He says, do you find it odd that it would be a month late? And she is once again really, really quiet with her response. And she says, yes, really quietly. This is not just Maddie's period being irregular. This is significant. Jenn's response to it tells me that this is significant. She doesn't want to admit to it. That's why she's speaking so very quietly.
Where do you think he would go?
I have no idea. If I knew, I would tell you.
So now we're moving into the part of the interview where they're trying to find out from Jenn where she thinks Stefan might go with Maddie, where he might have taken Maddie. And we get this consistent response, really, really quiet voice, and I don't know. Or I have no idea. Still, nothing affirmative. And she also adds in, if I knew, I would tell you. But that is still really, really quiet. To me, that suggests that's a lie. If she knew and she was going to tell them, I would expect to hear that in a far more affirmative tone. And I would expect here to hear her say something along the lines of, I wish I knew. Not that she doesn't know, she's got no idea. And she'd tell them if she knew. Because it's a given. If she was totally uninvolved and she knew absolutely nothing, then it's a given that, of course, she would tell them if she knew something. So for her to actually have to say that, to me, is a huge red flag. Particularly when she says it in that itty-bitty voice. I think she had a fair idea of where Stefan took Maddie. And I think she was still protecting him here. They've shown her images, and the only thing I can think of is that the reason she's not acting with shock is that she already knew before she saw these images what the situation was. Because otherwise, this woman should be kicking and screaming and wanting to kill someone. Instead, she's being really quiet and saying, I don't know. If I knew, I would tell you. When someone is objecting like that and saying, if I knew, I would tell you, usually that means they know, but they're not going to tell you.
I don't want to believe that she's dead in those images you showed me. She doesn't look like she's sleeping. Who sleeps? When you sleep in a car, you sleep with your head on the door. Her head was over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't normally pause these clips partway through, but what I wanted to point out here is, here we've got the lowered voice, but to me it sounds like she's trying to work herself up into a emotional state again, because it's not exactly a whisper. But here's the thing, she's giving way too much detail here. When you've just been shown a photo of what detectives are telling you is your child deceased in a car, you're not going to come out with this long spiel debating whether the position that she's in is a position of someone who is deceased or whether it's just someone sleeping, like yada yada yada. I know that's not the exact words, but that's the gist of what she's saying here. That is not the reaction of someone who's just been shocked by an image. She's giving way too much detail. She's talking way too much here for someone who is in fact supposed to be shocked. I believe that the lowered voice here is she knows that the required response here is for her to become emotional. Problem is, she's having trouble turning that back on, so she's got to wind it up a bit first, and that's what she's doing here, in my opinion.
I don't know what you want me to say or do, or just want my daughter back.
So, after struggling to wind herself up and not quite getting there, she comes out with, I don't know what you want me to say or do. We've still got that little mousy voice going on because I think she's backed herself into a corner here. She can't figure out how to respond to this and be credible. So this is actually a bit of leakage here, in my opinion. No parent is going to ask how they should be reacting after being shown an image of their child. That's just not how it happens. It's going to kick you in the gut and you are just going to react. You don't need anyone to tell you how you should be reacting at that moment in time. You're certainly not going to be going on with a long speech about why that photo looks bad. And you're certainly not going to be asking, I don't know how you want me to react. Because at that point in time, you don't give a damn how they want you to react. That's the last thing on your mind. She's struggling with her act here. Hence the quiet voice, and hence the question, I don't know what you want me to do or how you want me to act or whatever she's saying here.
But do you have any knowledge of what he has done with her?
I wish I could tell you, but I don't. I have no idea.
Okay, again, do you have any knowledge of what he's done with her? Her answer is, I wish I could tell you, but I don't. I have no idea. Still very vague. I've got no idea. I wish I could tell you, but I don't. Wrong answer, Jen. Totally the wrong answer. Every time they question her about if she knows what Stefan's done with Maddie, we get this super quiet voice. It's like her brain is saying, you're gonna lie here, just do it quietly. Because that is the response. When someone is lying, you hear the lowered voice. Every time she's asked about what Stefan might have done with Maddie, we get the lowered voice. We get the, I wish I could tell you. I bet you wish, Jen. You wish you could tell them, but you're not going to because it's going to implicate you. Is that the truth of what's going on here?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew I would tell you.
Still, with the super quiet voice, it sounds like she's still trying to work herself up into an emotional state. And again, she's objecting with, I would tell you. I wish I knew. I would tell you. 3 times now, she's objected with essentially saying she'd tell them if she knew. That should be a given. The fact that she has to keep repeating it, to me, says that she's really trying to sell that soggy bread. And I'm sorry, but I'm not buying it. It should be a given that if you know, you would tell the detectives. So the fact that she has to say it, the fact that she has to repeat it, to me says that no, she's not going to tell them. Even if she knew the exact location of her daughter, she's not going to tell them. Because at the end of the day, Jenn is looking out for Jenn.
Has he ever talked about giving Maddie medication? Like any of his medication?
I don't think so, no.
You don't think so, or?
No.
Okay. Have you ever given her any of your medication?
She's got her own anxiety medication.
Do you double check her medication?
When we give it to her?
Now that was such a major tell for me right there. So they're asking about Maddie's medication. And the first question is about if Stefan's given her any of his medication, given Maddie any of his medication in the past. And she says it so quietly, I don't think so, no. I should have just named this video, I don't think so. Because every time her voice drops, it's always a really vague answer, I don't think so. And then, no. But the no's even quieter. And when he says, you don't think so, she gives the no again. Like I've said in a previous video, she could be saying, no, I don't think so. In that the no is not necessarily her saying no, she's certain that that's not the case. They then go on to ask her about if she's ever given Maddie any of, or if Maddie's ever had any of Jenn's medication. She doesn't give a definite answer on that either, but instead answers with she's got her own anxiety medication. Once again, in a super, super quiet voice. She has very carefully avoided answering the question. That's not the answer that they were asking for. They didn't ask if Maddie had her own medication. They asked if Maddie had ever been given any of Jenn's medication. She did not answer that. But what happens next is a major tell to me. They ask her, do you double check her medication? And suddenly her voice is back at a normal level. When we give it to her? Well, duh, when else? But the fact that she's gone from so very non-committal answers where she's virtually whispering, giving answers, not essentially giving answers over whether Maddie's ever been given any of Stefan's or her own medication, to then answering, well, asking a question which she wants clarification for, and she's back up to normal volume. You can see the difference in volume there. And to me, what that's telling me is that those things that she was saying very quietly were she wasn't going to give answers because the answers wouldn't look good. To me, that's saying that yes, Maddie was given some of Stefan's medications, some sort of medications that Stefan had. And yes, she was at some point in time given some of Jenn's medications. Sounds to me like this poor kid was being given all manner of drugs. And it just breaks my heart.
What meds? What does she take?
She takes hydroxyzine.
Okay. What is it for?
It's for anxiety and for sleep.
Okay.
Now, could she take that by herself, or would he have given that to her?
I think she took it by herself. She got home and she had already taken it.
How do you know that?
That's what he told me.
That's what he told you. Okay.
I think that one is just about self-explanatory. They're asking about Maddie's meds, and they ask her how does she know that Maddie took her meds that night. And very quietly she says, that's what he told me. She knows that's a crappy answer, because a decent mother would have been, I asked her, I checked with her, I checked the bottle. Not, that's what he told me. I took his word for it and I didn't bother to find out for myself, essentially. Here again, it's about not wanting to present as a bad mother. She wants to seem like the good mother, so she doesn't want to say this answer too loudly, because she knows that the right response would have been for her to have checked herself.
Sunday night he came downstairs, maybe overnight, to use the restroom.
Yeah, and then he went back upstairs and they went to sleep. Or where I think they went to sleep.
Okay.
I went to sleep.
Okay, when I listened to her say this, it concerned me. I think she has just essentially told us when what happened to Maddie occurred. So they're talking about them getting ready for bed. And she says that before everyone went to bed, he came back downstairs and used the bathroom. And then basically she's saying, and then they went to sleep. And then almost inaudible, she says, well, I think they went to sleep. And then, even more quietly, she says, I don't know. Well, why would you even need to add that? Supposedly, everyone's just gone to bed. Wouldn't you just expect that if you've gone to bed, you're going to go to sleep? So for her to say, I think they went to sleep, means that she thinks that something else may have occurred. There is a possibility that something else may have occurred other than them going to sleep. Is Jenn telling us that when everyone went to bed, after Stefan came downstairs and used the bathroom, that's when something happened to Maddie? Because it should be a given that everybody went to sleep after that. So for her to say that she thinks they went to sleep in that super quiet voice, and then even more quietly to say, I don't know, to me suggests she's telling us right then and there that that's when it happened. And that she knows that's when it happened. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just a really interesting way that she's speaking right then and there. She claims that he went downstairs later on through the night. We have his story to his parents of him putting her to bed and then going to cool off and coming back and finding her cold, or going to cool down, basically, going back and finding her cold. So is Jenn telling us that evening when she went to bed, Stefan came downstairs, used the bathroom, went back upstairs, and then something happened after that. Let me know your thoughts. I still don't believe that she saw Maddie on the Sunday night, but I do wonder if this is a bit of a clue in terms of the time frame of when this happened to Maddie.
Her phone was on her dresser. When I found it, I was like, oh my god, she's got her phone again. That's great.
Okay, I believe her that Maddie's phone was on the dresser. Personally, I don't know why she was supposedly in there, because we know she wasn't putting things away and straightening up. I suspect she was told Maddie's phone was in there on the dresser. But what I find interesting here is that when she says, I said, oh my god, she's left her phone again, that's great. The fact that she says that so quietly, and not only is it quiet, but it is diminishing in volume, so that by the time she gets to that's great, you've really got to strain to hear her. So I don't think that's what was said at the time. I think that is entirely made up. She thinks that sounds like a convincing part of the narrative there. Adding that in because she thinks that's what she probably should say if Maddie left her phone behind. Maybe I'm wrong. But don't forget, we've heard from the detectives that Maddie rarely left her phone at home. What she's saying there is essentially pushing the narrative of Maddie frequently leaving her phone at home because she has ADHD, which we know is BS. So I think we can be confident that that was not her actual reaction when she saw the phone on the dresser. I'm really not satisfied at all with this story of her discovering the phone on the dresser. And the fact that saying it so quietly like that is part of this whole story of finding the phone on the dresser just really, really makes me want to question Jenn myself as to what's the real story here. Did you really go into Maddie's room to do something? Or did you simply go into Maddie's room to collect the phone that you already knew was there?
Did he say if he found anything or talked to anybody, or just roamed?
Yeah, roamed.
So essentially they were asking her there about the night after they'd reported Maddie missing and he went out with her car, and they want to know what he told her that he did. And they give her all these questions, all these scenarios, and says, or just roamed. And she does add quite quietly there, just roamed. I think she knows that's not what he did. She's just coming up with the answer that they gave her because she does not want to give a truthful answer here.
He was already in bed before I went to the bathroom.
Okay.
I was on my phone for a little bit. He was laying in bed snoozing. I went to use the restroom. I was in the restroom for quite a while because I had like a terrible cell. When I came back out, he was asleep. At least I thought he was asleep. But
So here again, we're back to the trip to Northport. And she sets up this whole thing of, I went to the bathroom and I came back and he was asleep. Or at least I think he was asleep. And she says that really, really quietly again. And once again, it's not affirmative. She just thinks it. She thinks he was asleep. She's so uncertain that she has to say it really, really quietly. Did they have some sort of conversation? Then he headed off to Northport and she went to bed. Because it seems like one of the topics where Jenn frequently goes quiet and gives, I think, or I'm not sure, answers, is when it comes to discussing him heading down to Northport. Supposedly she knows nothing, but any time it comes up, you get the voice really, really quiet. She doesn't want to go down that track.
Super cute, but it was like, oh, she hadn't told me, and I wondered, I'm like, why didn't she tell me? Why'd she tell him and not me? And like, I want to know who she got a crush on, but maybe it's because I've told her she had a rule, she wasn't allowed to date for a few years, until like, I think I had said 16 or something like that, but I didn't want her dating.
Now, I actually am going to do a separate video where I talk about all these instances where Jenn is trying to appear to be the perfect mother. And I think that's what is occurring here. The way that the volume gradually diminishes as she's saying this makes me pretty confident that she did not have a rule about Maddie not dating till she was 16. Makes me even more confident because when she gets to the end of that sentence and has become almost inaudible, she says, or something like that. Now, if you have made a rule, then obviously you're going to make that rule pretty clear with your child. You're not going to be, well, I don't want you to date until like you're 16 or something like that. If it's a rule, it is a clearly defined rule. So the fact that she doesn't know what this rule actually is, and her voice is getting quieter and quieter, says to me that this is Jenn just trying to sound like a responsible parent. She thinks that 16 probably sounds like a good age to say that a child can't date before then. So that's what she's going to come out with. But she completely undoes herself by saying, or something like that. Because she says that so quietly that hopefully you won't hear her say that. But we know that when Jenn's voice starts to get quieter, that's when we need to listen more carefully.
I wanted to make sure that nothing was happening and that I was missing something, but I was.
This is her claiming to be the hyper-vigilant parent, and she wanted to make sure she wasn't missing anything, and then you've got to listen really hard to hear her say, but I was. Now that could just be embarrassment, could just be her not wanting to admit that she was a crap parent. Or it could be her admitting that the truth was that she was missing something because she was allowing all this stuff to go on under her roof and completely ignoring it. Either way, it doesn't put her in a good light, so I can see why she needed to be so very quiet at that point in time, because it makes her look bad either way.
But eventually, at some point, like we really want to watch. I forgot what movie it was. They really wanted to watch something, and I was really tired. And I said, okay, fine, go ahead, but this can't happen often. And yeah, I allowed her to go upstairs and sleep with him. But honestly, I think I can count on one hand how many times that's happened, and it hasn't been many times that I've allowed her to have a slumber party with him, to be alone in a bed with him.
Again, she's trying to avoid being heard saying, I allowed her to go upstairs and sleep with him. It is almost inaudible because that doesn't fit the picture of the good parent. She knows how very, very, very wrong that is. So she's already trying to redact it, essentially. It's already half out of her mouth and she knows it's a bad thing and she shouldn't be saying it. Hence the reason it's so quiet. She knew it was a bad thing. She knew what she was doing to her daughter was so wrong. Just the volume at which she is saying that shows us how very much aware she was that what she was doing was really bad.
But for somebody who's going through what you were going through, to offer him a lawyer leads me to believe that there may have been a conversation, there may have been knowledge, or there may have been some inclination that you had, whether it be his involvement, her location, or something to where in your mind there's guilt.
I promise you,
Because you offering him a lawyer is very weird.
Okay, so this detective has actually totally got her measure. Once again, she starts with almost whispering, I promise you. She's going to up the ante there, clearly. She was going to say, I promise you I know nothing or I knew nothing. He doesn't want to hear it because he knows it's bullshit. He can tell from that super quiet tone in her voice that she's lying. Saying, I promise you, she's trying to emphasize it because, once again, she's trying to push this whole thing of her knowing nothing. But she's trying to be convincing, hence the I promise you. If you are genuine, then you don't tend to be quite as persuasive with additional words like I promise you. She should be getting angry right now. How dare you accuse me of this? This is my daughter. But no, we don't have that. We have a teeny tiny mouthy whisper of I promise you. Still the wrong reaction to the wrong questions.
And this is not me coming at you as a person or a bad person, because shit happens in the past, and the past is the past. We can't change the past. Has he ever expressed to you Never. Has he ever made these statements about made you feel different?
No.
Okay. When you guys slept in the same bed together, in the middle, did you ever wake up and find them cuddling? Did you ever wake up and find them closer than you thought they should be?
They would snuggle, yeah.
Okay.
Now, you've got the redactions there which make it a bit harder, but we know that he's talking about Maddie there. Has he ever expressed to you something to do with Maddie? We know from the rest of the context that he's talking about things happening in bed with Maddie. So when he asks her, has he ever expressed to you something to do with Maddie, she says no, really, really quietly. So quietly that you've got to listen really hard to hear it. I think the context when he's saying, has he ever made comments that made you feel different, definitely has a sexual context there. And again, she pretty much whispers no. I think there were things in the past that definitely raised her awareness. And I think the fact that she's saying these things almost inaudibly says to me that she knew full well what was going on. Because then she starts to talk about them snuggling, which is something way less it still sucks and it still should never have been happening, but it's certainly not as bad as the other things that he seems to be discussing here, and she's back to speaking in a normal voice. I believe the way she's speaking here says to me that she knew things were not right.
So they would snuggle, sometimes him being in his boxers. You would wake up and she'd be in the nook of his arm, essentially in a cuddling position. And you never found that weird?
No.
Okay.
I don't know whether the reason why she's so quiet when she says no, when asked about her being in the nook of Stefan's arm, is because, once again, she wants to appear like the responsible parent and doesn't want to admit that she was aware that it was a bad thing, or whether she just genuinely didn't consider it to be a problem. I think Jenn is far more intelligent than that. This is a woman who has supposedly had her own traumatic experience with a male. Her radar should have just gone berserk seeing Maddie in the nook of his arm. So I think that when she says no here, it's because she knows it's wrong. And she doesn't want to admit that she knew it was wrong, but she still allowed it.
It seems very difficult. A lot of grown-ass adults can't hide an affair with somebody who doesn't live with them, let alone somebody who does live with them. So at a certain point, I do believe you became aware of what was going on.
No.
And when I say that, it doesn't mean you're in trouble. It doesn't change.
I know, but...
But I do believe that a reasonable person, and I consider you a reasonable person, right? Do you think you're a reasonable person?
Yes.
Would be aware that under her roof, sexual relation.
I had no idea.
The videos, the text messages.
I think what's happening here is he's well and truly backed her into a corner. He asks her if she's a reasonable person. And that's a dilemma for her, because if she says yes, then essentially she's saying yes, she's a reasonable person, therefore she should have realised that all these things that were happening to her daughter were wrong. But if she says no, then that makes her look like a bad parent. And as I've said, she's doing her best to appear like the perfect parent. So for her, the best response, because at least it doesn't make her look like a bad parent, the response that in her opinion makes her look better is to say yes, but obviously either way she's screwed, so she has to say it really, really quietly. Yes, she's a reasonable person. The inference there being that, yes, that means that she did know that what was going on was wrong. And that she was aware of what was going on. And when she says to him, I had no idea, it is so very quiet. So I call complete utter BS on that. Of course she had some idea. She knew what was going on between Stefan and her daughter was wrong. She's basically admitted that she's seen these things, like Maddie being in the nook of his arm. She's seen things that to a reasonable person would cause alarm bells. And she's saying she's a reasonable person, but she had no idea. They backed her into a corner, and she's struggling here because she still wants to appear innocent, and she wants to appear like the good mother.
He treated her like...
Like he treats you? In his mind,
It's so fucking disgusting.
so now he's in jail because of what we found on his phone. Not because
I've got absolutely no idea what it was she just said there. It was squeaky, it was quiet. I don't think she really wanted to say whatever it was, because essentially she was having to admit here that she completely ballsed up and that she did the wrong thing by her child. Jenn doesn't want to admit that because she's such a narcissist. She wants to appear to be the perfect mother. Now, there's still so many clips here of Jenn with that teeny tiny little voice. And I think I've kind of made my argument here well and truly. So I'm going to do the same again here with this video as what I did with my previous video with the Soto Sigh. And that is, I'm going to just leave the remainder of clips on the end of the video here for you to listen to yourself and make your own assessments. That way, for starters, that allows me to see if people are agreeing with my assessments or if I'm just way off base here. But also because I love hearing people's thoughts when it comes to this case, because there are some amazing thinkers amongst my subscribers, and so often I read people's comments and think, wow, yeah, that totally makes sense. Why didn't I think of that? So I really look forward to hearing your perspective on what's going on here. Now, before I won't do an outro at the end, so before I play the rest of these clips, I do want to thank you for watching this video. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Please hit the like button, because that YouTube loves it when you hit the like button. That gets my video out into the algorithm. It gets it being recommended to more people and seen by more people. And of course, leave a comment, because I always look forward to reading your comments. I do apologise. These days, there's more comments than I can respond to. I do my best, but I can't quite get to everyone. But I do definitely read all your comments, and like I said, I love the thinking that is going on in this community. I'm quite proud of the community that is beginning to happen here on this channel, because there are some really great thinkers. There's some really great conversations that occur in the comment sections for my videos. But anyway, let's go in and I'll play the last of those clips for you. And I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts on them. So thanks, and I will catch you in the next one.
could be different because she's a teenage girl. Could be that she missed her period. Have you ever found a pregnancy test at home that wasn't yours?
I have two underneath the bathroom sink, but I haven't seen if they're still there or not.
Okay. But you haven't seen any used ones in the trash?
No.
Their relationship hasn't changed?
No.
Okay. So what do you think happened Sunday? Other than him killing her, what do you think made him snap?
I don't know. Theories, I keep hearing
Tell me your theories, because here's the deal.
What do you think?
I don't want to believe he killed her. But for me, he was her told me he must have killed her Sunday night and snuck her body out in the morning. That photo you guys showed me of her slumped in the car.
Did he tell you he fucked up?
No.
Okay, are we going to find anything in his phone with you?
No. We never done anything. We've never done anything.
Has there ever been a request for the two of you to participate in sexual activity with him?
No.
Regardless of you saying no or yes?
No, he's never asked that.
Okay. If we find pictures like that, is that going to surprise you? Like if I'm in his Google Drive, if I have a sex crimes detective, a computer person look at his phone, and they tell me, hey Kevin, I found a picture engaged in sexual activity or borderline sexual activity, is that going to surprise you?
Yes, because that doesn't exist.
Okay. If you can think of anything that would assist us in making that happen for you today versus 2 years from now, regardless of why you know or how you know, we need it.
No, I know. If I knew anything, I would tell you right now. I promise. I want her back so bad. I don't want to think about planning a funeral. I knew what I saw was
He was
terrible.
a predator right then and there. That's the day you found out he was a predator.
Yeah.
Yes. And after you found out he was a predator, did you not say he needed a lawyer?
I did.
It's easy to believe it now. We showed you pictures of it. You can't deny it anymore.
I know.
The sex was okay. The murder's not. At least that makes sense.
None of that's okay.
And I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I truly am. But deep down, you haven't showed me that I am.
I don't know what I need to show you.
Prioritize her over Steven. So I need likely places that you think, and I need places you think based off of conversations with him, not because you can picture in your mind that there's trees there.
Okay. There's no conversation I can think of where he's named interest in being anywhere near woods or it being along his way.
Do what he does. Meaning?
I'm sorry?
You said, I let him do what he does.
Yeah.
You know him better than us. You gotta really think.
There's something I can think of.
Where do you take her?
I'm going blank. I have no idea.